doing. But, ladies and gentlemen, this hump day is more like Groundhog Day, where once again the media, the Democratic Party, needs to find a cause, sink its teeth into, and to really distort the truth. What am I talking about? Unfortunately, last week there was a really unfortunate situation where five officers, now a sixth allegedly, um, beat up Tyre Nichols to death. The crime was senseless, and it's a crime. The move was ridiculous. The attack on this individual was absolutely brainless. What it wasn't, and this is what the Democratic Party and members of the media, people in the Black Lives Matter movement want to convince you that this was racially motivated, that five African American police officers beat up an African American purporting critical race theory. Stuart, I'm miffed at this one. Help us here, please.
Okay, let's start it off. And guys, I'm sure there'll be sound bites that'll make me sound, unfortunately, very honest and being called many names. It's never a good day where someone gets put in a pine box and buried. Okay? There's never sense when it happens for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. In this case, Tyre Nichols, who isn't the victim, but isn't necessarily the innocent, still didn't deserve to die. A 29-year-old black man in Memphis got pulled over for reckless driving. Okay? So he was stopped for a reason. I didn't see that in the news. Then the initial reports was black man got beaten by police. Well, I'm sorry, a black man beats a black man happens every single day in Chicago. Yet I don't see that in the news. In LA, every single day, a black man beats a black man. Every day. Every day, there's a cop who's trying to do a job. And there's sometimes a white man, sometimes a black man, sometimes a brown man, sometimes a yellow man. Not necessarily complying with the officers. Now, I don't think these five cops and the six now becoming indicted in the next unsealed version of it had any right to kill a man. I think that, the Kamala Harris and the Democrat defund the police movement is responsible for Tyre Nichols' death. Hey, I can't, and I know a lot of law enforcement officers, guys that work at a much higher federal level, guys that served in Iraq, right? Who go to me and say, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. So the good leave because it's impossible to retain people at really low wages considering the risk, especially when your current government says you're the scapegoat. Kamala Harris is a girl that took a knee, a girl that villainizes police.
A lady. Even though she's let's call her what she is. She's a lady.
Okay. David, a woman, all the same, is going to a funeral of an individual who was brutally murdered. I don't know. Did you see Biden show up in Ohio when the two senseless girls and senseless boys were murdered? Did I hear Kamala Harris go to that funeral? No. Because there's no political agenda associated with a sociopath. These five officers were sociopaths. They woke up and they murdered a poor guy. But again, does it deserve the vice president of the United States
Well,
attend and politicize this funeral?
let's go dig a little deeper here, okay? Because again, like I said in my intro, it's about really trying to create a story where there is no story. But the story is actually a little bit different. and you brought it up. The defunding the police has created an environment of fear within the police department. Who in God's name wants to be a police officer today? When number one, you can't defend yourself because the media cameras are always on you, no matter what you do, right or wrong. If you are a white police officer, the scrutiny is elevated because every move you do is racially motivated. You have people attacking police officers violently, and people with their cameras. I mean, think about it, Stuart. Look at this. People do this all the time, waiting to capture you doing something so that they can capture their TikTok moment. And really, the police officers are looking at this saying, I'm getting less funding, which means I don't have the money to properly equip myself, defend myself. Then on top of it, I'm scrutinized to death. These 5 police officers that you mentioned here, Stuart, would have not have been hired 10 years ago, 12 years ago, because of the level of requirements, as you clearly stipulated, wasn't met. The desperation from the Memphis Police Department was we needed bodies. The worst part of it all is to sit there and, there's a Piers Morgan interview, which I saw last night. He has a Black Lives Matter activist, as she likes to call herself, and she has Zuby, who's a rapper and a podcaster. And I've never heard of either of these two, but I was fascinated to hear how the Black Lives Matter activists couldn't get over the fact that the 5 police officers were racially motivated because of white supremacy and ongoing suppressed racism. They took it out on this poor Black person. Meanwhile, Zuby, the rapper, who happens to be African-American as well, is saying, that's crap. What we're doing is we're evading our accountability and responsibility as human beings. Okay? This isn't about color, about skin color. And she couldn't get off of it. So here you have this. You have a Whoopi Goldberg who on The View stands up and says, wow, I'm wondering if we would have beaten up a white person, would things change? Whoopi, I don't know about you, but white people, Black people, people of any race and color have been beaten up by police for decades, for generations. This isn't new. But it doesn't make the news because to CNN and MSNBC, it's not good enough. It has to be a white on black crime. And when it's a black on black crime, as you would call it, it's not as attractive. But Kamala Harris wants to make it attractive, Stuart. And Kamala Harris and the Democrats want to make something out of nothing here. And
no, David, I wouldn't say it's nothing.
No, but listen, going to the funeral,
it's a senseless murder that is actually on Kamala Harris's and the Democratic Party's hands. They have forced over the last several years the hate towards law enforcement. This isn't a Rodney King story.
No, hell no.
This is, you know what? You do not hear from Chicago the murders black on black every single day.
No. Or white on white, white on white, black on white.
Asian on, black on Asian.
Because it's not newsworthy. It's not newsworthy. The news media picks and chooses what it thinks is important. Come on, we know that.
Yep.
I think
it's sad,
Stuart, I think that the point, the thing that is absolutely disgusting, and here are 2 white men talking about this, and the reality is that police brutality, and I live in a province where I have seen racially motivated police officers stopping, blacks who are driving affluent cars. We've seen this racial profiling. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Please, okay? Let's get real. The first thing that they see is skin color. But the Memphis police chief, by the way, do you know she's Black? Do you know that 58%, according to the statistics, 58% of the entire police force in Memphis is Black? More than the majority of the population of Memphis is Black. Okay, So what we're seeing here, the likelihood of a black on black incident is pretty high. I'm not excusing it. I'm glad that these 5 officers were arrested, thrown out of their job, fired. And I love the comment, oh, had they been white officers, this would have dragged on forever. This is the problem, guys. People are trying to fix a problem, and all you're doing is finding other problems. This doesn't work.
So David, there's an old age adage.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not part of the solution, then you're the problem.
Well, but
and you know what, David, politics isn't about solving problems.
No, I agreed. But in this case, we're talking about human lives. Okay? Did you see protests across America, across the world? After Rodney King and after certain incidences, we saw very violent responses by the various communities. We didn't see it this time. And it wasn't because we're not sensitive. Because the anger that the left wants, it's there, but it isn't there. Yes, we should be angry at police brutality. And Colin Kaepernick, by the way, is taking advantage again of this situation. I don't know if you heard. And he's putting out another documentary. This genius is putting out a documentary now. Okay? And it's all about police brutality. All right? It's a 3-part true crime, as he likes to call it, docuseries called Killing County. So you see, you have people who want to exploit this for their own purposes, whether it's money or power, call it what you want. Black Lives Matter, certain people within Black Lives Matter are looking at this as like, hey, guess what? Loving this, right?
Need another mansion. Mansion.
Yeah. And in reality, what was missing here is that the family of this poor individual is left with what? A dead relative. And the fact that the community, the left, is trying to take advantage of this, I think is disrespectful to his memory.
David, I can't agree more. And like I said, the vice president didn't attend any other funerals of any other people. There are lots of other very, very prominent people that died for bad circumstances. I didn't see any member of our government showing up to that. No. You know what? That's how desperate this woman is to be relevant in the news. Did she show up on the border? On the border, they caught an Iranian terrorist today. I'd like you to see if that made any other media network. Not just an Iranian. Not important. A known Iranian terrorist.
It doesn't matter, Stuart. The point is that the left wants to deal with one topic and one topic only, and that is Black racism. It doesn't care about anything else. It doesn't want to fight other fights. I got to tell you, Stuart, on a side note, just to give you an idea about how racism works, our prime minister hired or nominated an individual to deal with Islamophobia. It's an official position. What, only the Muslim community is dealing with racism? This is politics at its best. And the fact is that the Biden administration condoned Harris going to the funeral. This is part and parcel of an election campaign to tell Americans that the Biden administration is there to protect them. You want to protect people, folks? We need more money to education and more money to policing.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. The left wants to get rid of education and indoctrinate people. We see that. We see that racism is the only motivation in this world, whether we're talking about even going to the gym. I mean, we heard that that going to the gym is a racist, concept. I mean, the left has got these absolutely wacky doodle ideas. In the meantime, what you're dealing with is a growing crime wave in many cities and a lack of concentration on fixing that problem more to get votes. And Stuart, on that, we have to end our midweek rant.
Midweek, center of the screen. David, say goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, have yourself a wonderful and